It's a strange question to ask. Could our ancestors think abstractly? It feels like asking if they could breathe or see. Thinking is just what we do. But the kind of thinking we do every day is incredibly complex. We think about tomorrow, we worry about next year's bills, we remember a conversation from a decade ago and feel embarrassed all over again. We understand what a flag stands for, what money represents, what love means. None of these things are physically in front of us. They are ideas, they are abstractions, and that's the real question. When did a human mind first grasp an idea that wasn't a rock, a piece of fruit, or a predator standing right there? When did we stop just reacting to the world and start creating a world inside our heads? This isn't a story with a clear beginning. There wasn't a single moment where a pre-human ancestor sat up and had a philosophical thought. It was a slow, gradual dawning, a process that took millions of years, leaving behind faint, scattered clues in stone and bone. To find the answer, we have to become detectives. We have to look at the things our ancestors left behind and try to reverse engineer their minds. Let's go back, way back, maybe 3 million years ago. We find our ancestor, perhaps an Australopithecus, walking the African savanna. Their world is immediate. It's a world of sensory input: the smell of rain, the heat of the sun, the sound of a lion, the taste of a root. Their thoughts, if we can call them that, were likely tied directly to these things: hunger, fear, the need to find shelter, the drive to mate. It's a rich mental life, but it's all happening in the present tense. It's a life of reaction. There is no evidence they plan for next week. There's no sign they mourn their dead in a symbolic way. The first clue that something is changing comes in the form of a tool, the simplest kind of stone tool. We call them Oldowan choppers. They were made by early members of our own genus, like Homo habilis, around 2.6 million years ago. A Homo habilis would pick up a suitable cobblestone, a core. Then they'd take another stone, a hammerstone, and strike the core at just the right angle. A sharp-edged flake would shear off. This flake was a prehistoric knife, perfect for cutting meat off a carcass. The core itself, now with a jagged edge, could be used for smashing bones to get at the marrow. This seems simple, it seems practical, but stop and think about what it takes to do this. First, you have to know that one type of rock is good for being a core, and another is good for being a hammer. You have to understand fracture dynamics. You don't just smash them together. You have to hit it with the right force at the right angle. Most importantly, you have to see the tool inside the stone before you make it. You have to hold around useless rock and imagine a sharp, useful edge. That act of imagination is a tiny spark of abstract thought. It's a plan, it's a thought about a future that doesn't exist yet, even if that future is only 30 seconds away. You are imposing an idea onto the physical world. This wasn't a huge leap. The toolmaker was likely just thinking about the immediate goal: getting a sharp edge to cut some food. They probably weren't pondering the nature of sharpness itself, but it was a start. It was the beginning of a feedback loop that would define our evolution. Making a tool requires a slightly more complex brain. A slightly more complex brain can then imagine and create a slightly better tool. The tool changes the brain, and the brain changes the tool. For a million years, this process continued. Old Darwin tools got a little more refined, but the basic idea stayed the same. It was a very slow burn. Then, around 1.7 million years ago, something new appeared. It was made by a new kind of human, Homo erectus, and it was a revolution in stone. We call it the Acheulean hand axe. These objects are breathtaking when you think about their age. Unlike a simple chopper, a hand axe is not just a broken rock, it's a sculpted object. It's typically teardrop-shaped, symmetrical, and worked on both sides to be thin and sharp. Creating one is a much more involved process than making an old Darwin flake. It takes dozens, sometimes hundreds, of precise strikes. The toolmaker has to plan many steps ahead. They have to rotate the stone in their mind, imagining how removing a flake from one side will set up the next strike on the other side. The most incredible thing about the hand axe is its consistency. Archaeologists find them all over Africa, Asia, and Europe. And for more than a million years, they all have the same basic design. A Homo erectus in Kenya and one in Spain, separated by hundreds of thousands of years, made a tool that you could immediately recognize as a hand axe. This is not something that could be passed on by simple imitation. This implies a shared mental template, an idea, a concept of what a hand axe should be. This idea was passed down through generations. It was a tradition, and tradition is an abstract concept. It's a set of rules about how things should be done that exists only in the shared minds of a group. The hand axe tells us that the mind of Homo erectus was capable of holding a complex, multi-step plan in its head. It shows an appreciation for symmetry and form that goes beyond pure function. In fact, some hand axes are so large and unwieldy, or so perfectly and delicately made, that archaeologists wonder if they were even tools at all. Maybe they were social signals. A way for a male to show off his skill, his intelligence, his good genes to a potential mate. Look at this perfect hand axe I made. I am a good provider, I am smart, I can plan ahead. If that's true, then the hand axe becomes a symbol. It stands for something else: fitness, status, competence. And a symbol is the very definition of an abstract thought. This was a huge cognitive step. The mind was no longer just thinking about the immediate future of a sharp edge. It was thinking about form, about social standing, about tradition. But the evidence is still locked in stone. We have their tools, but we don't know what they said to each other. We don't know if they told stories. We don't know if they believed in spirits. To see the next leap, we have to move forward in time and meet our closest extinct relatives, the Neanderthals. For a long time, Neanderthals had a bad reputation. We imagined them as brutish, dim-witted cavemen. That picture is completely wrong. The Neanderthal mind was incredibly sophisticated, and the evidence for their abstract thought is much clearer and more diverse. It starts, as always, with their tools. The Neanderthals perfected a technique called levallois. It was a way of making stone tools that was even more abstract and complex than making a hand axe. Imagine you want a specific type of spear point. It needs to be a certain size, a certain shape, and very sharp. With the levallois technique, you don't just start chipping away at a rock until it looks right. Instead, you take a large core of stone and meticulously prepare it. You chip away at the sides, shaping the core's surface into a dome like a turtle's shell. You are preparing the platform from which you will strike. All of this work, all these preliminary steps, are not to create the tool itself. They are to create the potential for the tool. The final tool, the perfect flake or point, exists only in the mind of the toolmaker. Then, with one final, perfectly placed strike, the desired flake is detached. The core is discarded. This requires a level of planning and visualization that is truly modern. It's like a carpenter building a complex jig just to make a single perfect cut. The process shows a deep understanding of cause and effect, of planning, and of imposing a highly specific preconceived form onto a raw material. The thought process is entirely abstract. If I shape the core this way and then hit it right here, I will get the exact flake that I'm imagining. But the evidence for Neanderthal abstract thought goes far beyond stone tools. It enters the realm of the deeply human. They bury their dead. At sites like La Chapelle aux Saints in France and Shanidar Cave in Iraq, we find Neanderthal skeletons that were deliberately placed in graves. This is a monumental shift. To other animals, a dead companion is just a body. It's an object to be avoided or ignored. To bury a body means you see it as something more. It implies that the person's identity doesn't just vanish at the moment of death. We can't know for sure what they believed. Did they think of an afterlife? Did they believe in a soul? We will never know. But the act of burial itself is profoundly symbolic. It is an act of respect. It is an act of remembrance. It is a way of saying, this person was one of us. They mattered. It separates the dead from the everyday world of thrown away bones and refuse. It creates a sacred space. This requires thinking about an individual's place in the social group even after they are gone. It's thinking about concepts like legacy and loss. It's a deep, emotional, and abstract act. And there's more. Neanderthals used pigments. They collected lumps of red ochre and black manganese. They scraped them, ground them into powder, and mixed them with liquids. What for? We find traces of it on their tools, maybe used as an adhesive, but we also find it in contexts that suggest it was used on their bodies. They may have painted their skin. Why? Body painting is a universal human behavior. It's used to signal identity, group affiliation, status, or to prepare for a ritual. It transforms a person from their simple biological self into a social symbol. To paint yourself red is to make a statement, to project an idea about who you are. They also collected objects that had no practical purpose. At a site in Croatia, archaeologists found a set of eagle talons. They had cut marks and polish on them, suggesting they were worn as part of a necklace or a bracelet. An eagle talon can't help you hunt or butcher a mammoth. Its value is purely symbolic. Eagles are powerful, impressive birds. To wear their talons is to associate yourself with that power. It's a form of communication, it's a piece of jewelry, it's a way of saying, I am a person who can kill an eagle, or I belong to the eagle clan. This is not the thinking of a simple-minded brute. This is the thinking of a person with a complex social world, a world rich with meaning and symbolism. So Neanderthals could clearly think abstractly. They planned for the future, they honored their dead, and they used symbols to communicate. They were so much like us. But then, our own species, Homo sapiens, arrived on the scene in Europe around 45,000 years ago. And something changed. The slow burn of cognitive evolution seemed to catch fire. It's often called the Upper Paleolithic Revolution or the creative explosion. The evidence for abstract thought becomes not just present, but overwhelming. The most famous evidence is the art. Deep inside caves like Chauvet and Lascaux in France, our ancestors painted. They squeezed into dark, dangerous, and inaccessible passages. By the flickering light of animal fat lamps, they covered the walls with breathtaking images of horses, bison, mammoths, and lions. These are not simple stick figures. They are sophisticated works of art showing perspective, movement, and an intimate knowledge of animal anatomy. Why did they do this? These caves were not living spaces. They weren't art galleries for casual viewing. Getting to these painted chambers was often a difficult, frightening journey. The act of painting in these deep, dark places was likely part of a ritual. Perhaps it was a form of hunting magic meant to ensure a successful hunt. Perhaps it was a shamanistic practice, a way of connecting with the spirit world. Perhaps it was a way of recording myths and stories, a prehistoric classroom for teaching the young about the world. Whatever the reason, the act of creating this art is profoundly abstract. The artist is not just painting a horse that is standing in front of them. They are recreating a horse from memory. They are capturing the idea of a horse, its essence, its spirit. The paintings often overlap and are mixed with strange geometric signs, dots, lines, and grids. These are clearly symbols, a code we can no longer read. The cave itself became a symbolic space, a bridge between the everyday world and a world of spirits and stories. And it wasn't just paintings. Our ancestors at this time began carving small statues. The most famous are the Venus figurines found all across Europe. These are small, portable statues of female figures, usually with exaggerated breasts, hips, and bellies, and with little attention paid to the face or feet. They are not portraits of real women, they are symbols. They likely represent ideas of fertility, motherhood, or perhaps a mother goddess. The carver was not trying to capture a likeness, they were trying to capture a concept. They were making an idea solid. At the same time, we find the first clear evidence of another uniquely human abstraction music. Archaeologists have found flutes made from bird bones and mammoth ivory. They have holes drilled into them that allow for different notes to be played. Imagine it. Sitting around a fire in a world without cities, without writing, without any of the noise we're used to. And someone picks up a flute and begins to play a melody. Music is pure abstraction. It's patterned sound that conveys emotion without using words. It can create feelings of joy, sadness, or tension. It can be used in rituals to create a sense of community and shared experience. All of this, the art, the figurines, the music points to a mind that is swimming in a sea of symbols. A mind that has created a second world, a cultural world, layered on top of the natural one. But what powered this creative explosion? The most likely answer is the final piece of the puzzle, fully modern language. Language is the ultimate tool for abstract thought. We can't find fossilized words, but the complexity of the art and the society that created it strongly implies that these people had language as we know it. Language allows us to do things no other animal can. It allows us to talk about things that are not here. We can talk about yesterday's hunt, we can plan for next season's migration, we can tell a story about a mythical hero, we can talk about ideas like justice, honor, and betrayal. That language detaches thought from the immediate world. It creates categories. The word tree doesn't just refer to the specific tree in front of me. It refers to the abstract concept of all trees. Language lets us ask what if questions. What if we tried to hunt the mammoths from the other side of the valley? What if we made a spear point out of bone instead of stone? This ability to run simulations of the future in our minds, to discuss them with others, and to make a collective plan is what allowed Homo sapiens to innovate and adapt so successfully. So why did all this happen? Why did abstract thought evolve at all? It wasn't for art or philosophy. It evolved because it gave our ancestors a powerful survival advantage. One of the main theories is the social brain hypothesis. As our ancestors began to live in larger and more complex social groups, they needed more brain power. It wasn't just about finding food. It was about navigating a complicated world of alliances, rivalries, friendships, and deceptions. To succeed in this world, you needed a theory of mind. You needed to be able to guess what others were thinking, feeling, and planning. If I steal his food, he will be angry with me, and his brother might help him attack me later. That entire thought process is abstract. It's about modeling other minds inside your own head. His language would have been a massive advantage in managing these social networks, allowing for gossip, reputation building, and the creation of shared rules and norms, which are themselves abstract concepts. Another major driver was a changing environment. Over the last few million years, the Earth's climate has been highly unstable, swinging between warm periods and ice ages. A creature that can only react to its immediate surroundings is at a disadvantage. But a creature that can remember what happened during the last drought, plan for the coming winter, and invent new tools and strategies to cope with a new challenge is much more likely to survive. Abstract thought is the ultimate tool for adaptability. It created a powerful feedback loop. Complex social groups and environmental challenges pushed the evolution of a brain capable of abstraction. That brain then developed better tools, better social strategies, and eventually language. Language then allowed for an even more complex culture, which in turn put even more selective pressure on having a brain that could handle all that complexity. Culture and biology began to evolve together. So, could our ancestors think abstractly? The answer is a long, drawn-out eyes. It wasn't a switch that was flipped. It was a dawning. It began with the first glimmer of a plan in the mind of a toolmaker over 2 million years ago. It grew into the mental template of a symmetrical hand axe, an idea held in the mind for 1 million years. It blossomed in the Neanderthals, with their careful burials and symbolic ornaments showing a mind that cared about meaning. And it exploded with Homo sapiens, whose minds painted worlds into existence in dark caves, and who used language to build a shared universe of stories, myths, and plans. That ability to live in a world of ideas, not just a world of things, is what makes us human. Every book you read, every law you follow, every scientific theory you learn, every promise you make, it all rests on that ancient foundation. It's the inheritance we receive from those distant ancestors, the ability to look at the world as it is, and to imagine how it could be different.